Been years ago now that two gentlemen by the name of Bob Ringer and Carl Besore amassed information regarding events of historical significance, landmarks, and people in Waynesboro and the vicinity. Ultimately, they took this compilation and they published several volumes of reminiscence about the time, the place, and the people. This evening, we're going to be reading from a reflection of the history of Waynesboro, Pennsylvania and vicinity, Volume 3. Speculation that a trolley line would be built between Hagerstown and Waynesboro via Leitersburg was revived in August of 1904 when Pittsburgh and Cumberland capitalists discussed the matter with Hagerstown, Waynesboro, and the Penmar Electric Railway Company, which was a Hagerstown concern. 2 years later, the latter firm had obtained a franchise for this line from the Maryland legislature. The franchise was to become void if work was not begun within 2 years from the date of issue. With time about to expire, it was extended by the Maryland legislature for an additional 2 years. Mr. Samuel Straight, Leitersburg pipe manager, indicated the line would be built along one side of the roadway and it would be a big boon to Leitersburg. As we know, that route was scrapped in favor of the northern line running between Hagerstown and Shady Grove via Reed. Connection with the C, G, and W Street Railway was made at Shady Grove, and the old trolley system, remodeled to some extent, now serves as a post office for that community. At about 8:30 the morning of June 4th, 1918, a large naval airship passed over the south end of Waynesboro at an extremely low altitude, apparently looking for an open space in which to land. Shortly thereafter, a forced landing was made in C.C. South's cornfield in the Mount Etna Road area near Hagerstown. A faulty valve had caused the 200-foot cigar-shaped bag to lose all of its hydrogen gas. The Akron, Ohio made ship, flown by Lieutenants Lansdowne and Corbett, was to be used in the East Coast observation work in connection with German U-boat activity. No one else was aboard that downed flight. Some of the early spectators assisted in freeing the aluminum basket from the balloon part of the ship. The basket had 3 separate seats. Attached to that basket was a 6-cylinder Rolls-Royce engine that had powered the ship. Since hydrogen gas was not available in this locality, the ship, under heavy guard, was taken apart with the parts packed up and shipped to the East Coast, where the airbag was rebuilt before performing its mission to track down German U-boats. Building in downtown Waynesboro has been humming May 1916. The structural steel work on the first floor of the front portion of the new Beck and Benedict building, 86 West Main Street, has been completed. The new Cranwell building in the southwest corner of Center Square is nearing completion. The F.E. Grove Undertaking building at 13 South Church Street had its walls up to first floor height. The front of the building is supposed to be trimmed in white stone. The front engine of the double-headed Cumberland Valley passenger train due in Waynesboro at 6:30 a.m. left the rails near Price's Church on this cold morning of February the 5th, 1918. The engine turned over on its side and it pinned engineer Al Grossman underneath the cab, where he remained trapped until he was rescued around noon. The 3-coach train, made up in Chambersburg that morning, had number 53 as a lead engine, with number 35 coupled to it as a pusher in case there were any snow drifts encountered. Grossman and the fireman, S.E. Wetzel, were in number 53, and W.H. Midhour and fireman A.L. Christ were in number 35. The first trouble was experienced near Waynesboro Junction north of Chambersburg, with drifts encountered the remaining distance into Waynesboro. While bucking these snowdrifts north of here, number 53's cowcatcher broke off and it dropped onto the ties. Mid-hour, in the second engine, could not avoid pushing number 53 around, so that when he did get the train stopped, number 53 went off the tracks, lying on its side on the left side of the track as it had headed into Chambersburg. The front engine tender was pushed over into the right side of the track, and both engine and tender were pushed some 75 feet before they left the ties. A wrecking crew from Hagerstown did not arrive until afternoon. In the meantime, the train crew, with help from passengers, hastily placed jacks underneath the overturned engine to rescue Mr. Grossman. Hot coffee, prepared at a nearby farmhouse, was given to the trapped man and those feverishly working to free him. Hacksaws were then used to cut pipes holding his feet, after which he was carefully pulled out. Following on-scene examination by Dr. Schultz and Amberson, he was placed on an improvised stretcher and taken to Marshall Bumgarner's farmhouse, which was close by. While en route, Mr. Grossman asked for a cigarette. Everyone decided he was a lucky man. Mr. Wetzel, his fireman, was thrown from the cab and narrowly escaped death. His body catapulted directly underneath the rear truck of the tender, which had been torn loose. As luck would have it, he found himself under the axle with sufficient room to crawl out, and his injuries were slight. Many on the train were en route to work in local shops. Some left the wreck scene and walked to their place of employment. A Frick Company yard engine hauled a number of the men to the wreck site, with several of them shoveling snow here and there so that an engine could reach the wreck area. Then Frick's engine shuttled tools, food, and coffee. Some, braving the intense cold, walked to the wreck scene from Waynesboro, but they did not remain there long. At the time of this wreck, one's mind wanders back to February 26, 1879, when tracks on the Mont Alto Railroad extension to Waynesboro had been nearly completed. The first train of cars reached Waynesboro the following afternoon, this being witnessed by a large crowd. Frick Company had the honor of making the first freight shipment over that line on March 3rd, a Monday, when one 20-horsepower Eclipse engine, 2 portable sawmills, and other machinery over 20,000 pounds were shipped to Denver, Colorado via Chicago, so reads the village record. With the line finished in Waynesboro, next came the erection of a freight and passenger station, a turntable, and an engine house. Most evidence of this line has since disappeared. For future historians, we will include the route taken for the extension. It passed on the west side of Quincy and near Nunnery Mill, and thence through the farms of Benjamin E. Price, John Riddlesberger, John Price, and Henry Funk, to the turnpike at the west end of the borough, a short distance into the lime kiln, an old landmark. The derailment mentioned earlier was a few hundred feet east of Price's Church on the Chambersburg Road. Additional Mont Alto Railroad information can be found in this volume in Article 8, which was published October 26th of 1994. Lewis Forney's tannery was among the first industries in Waynesboro. Some called him the Thaddeus Stevens of the village in the late 1840s. His tannery created a market for bark, with daily wagon loads coming from nearby mountains. When hides were ready for the vats, Freddie Hoffman and Mr. Fullerton would place them in a bath made from the bark. That treatment was given to them before going through the finishing process and prior to being shipped into the city. Mr. Forney, a good provider and a family man, had 3 sons, Jacob, Eli, and Adam, and a number of daughters. Mr. Forney did much for this community, including contributing to the town clock, which was his idea, locating the gas company across the alley from his tannery, organizing the water company with the help of Philadelphia people, and seeing 3rd Street opened between Potomac and Broad. It is said the town's first telegraph operator wanted to study law but had lacked the means to do so. He borrowed the money from Mr. Forney, spent his time in study, practiced speaking in Lesher's Woods northeast of town, and moved to Ohio where he was admitted to the bar. Later, he was elected judge of the courts. When he died, a tract of land in Ohio donated by the judge was developed into a park which was named after the Waynesboro boy known here as Volney B. Rogers.